I do think, though, that what ends up hurting Brad Stevens here is jealousy amongst his peers, which is weird because, again, he is seemingly so grounded and so self-deprecating and so humble and gives everybody else his respect. I think there's a jealousy within the coaching fraternity that Brad Stevens is seen as the wonder boy. And I think there's jealousy because the media fawns all over Brad Stevens. Now, I love Brad Stevens, and I think that it's validated because of what he has done on the floor, because he handles himself and comports himself that way. I've got no problem banging the drum for Brad Stevens. But Brad Stevens is like every media member's wet dream. I mean, he talks to everybody. We played for you there. He's self-deprecating. He's humble. He's open. He's smart. He looks like he's 25 years old. He came from Butler. There's this whole aura around him that's not this like grizzled, old NBA coach, been around the block, frustrated with the media, short, curt, temper tantrums, etc. He's always in control. I think the media fawns all over him, looks at him as boy wonder, and other coaches are like, oh, God, again, another fawning piece on Brad Stevens, another complimentary rant about Brad Stevens, another person in the media talking about how great Brad Stevens is. And I think that's what ends up happening here. Because let's face it, there is just no way you could give Doc Rivers a vote as head coach of the year and not Brad Stevens. I mean, I know that Indiana lost Paul George, but are you really going to vote for Nate McMillan over Brad Stevens? Brett Brown, yeah, they had a really good season, and so you could understand that. Are you really? Nobody's going to vote for Stevens? Nobody? Nobody's going to give Brad Stevens a vote? Either that is everybody in the NBA goes, hey, man, he might have lost talent, but he's had talent. That might be what that is. Like, yeah, I mean, he was supposed to be one of the best teams of the East, and they ended up being the best team of the East. And he's had a lot of talent. He's got a great GM. Maybe that's what that is. Like, he's not exceeding expectations. Because I think you could say, well, Quinn Snyder lost Gordon Hayward. And look what they did. Terry Stotts in Portland, kind of elevating the Blazers to the next level. Popovich is Popovich. Indiana lost Paul George. Mike D'Antoni took that Rockets team, and they became the number 1 seed. Philly's Brett Brown. Dwayne Casey, they become a 1 seed this year. A lot of this feels like votes for what expectations were versus what expectations ended up, or what the reality was at the end of the year. They exceeded expectations. Almost all of these guys exceeded expectations, whereas I think people said, well, there's talent in Boston. You were supposed to be one of the best teams of the league, and you were. And what that fails to take into account is during the season, there were multiple times where the Celtics could have been a 5 seed, a 6 seed, a 7 seed in a first-round exit, and instead, they ended up as the 2 seed. And granted, this was a regular season vote, but there's that, and maybe there's just jealousy amongst other coaches that he gets a lot of positive attention. Either way, he's great. The results are there, and I think they're going to give the Cavs all they can handle.